In To Save America, you say he's very far left. He's socialist in a way. And when you bring up Jimmy Carter, will there ever be a Teddy Kennedy 1980 kind of run in 2012 against Obama for the Democrats?
It's hard to know. I mean,
if
the European problems lead to a second drop down, and you're at 12% unemployment, yeah, or if the Iranians do something, I mean, there are 3 or 4 circumstances where you could begin to imagine a race against him. I don't think today that's likely. This is a machine. They operate with all the power of a machine. They're quite enthusiastic about going out and punishing people, and they're quite enthusiastic about doing what it takes to dominate. And it's easier for a president can dominate inside their party. I mean, look what happened to Kennedy. It's hardly a good model to say, yeah, why don't you go take on the president?
What about on the Republican side? When you look at what happened to Bob Bennett, if we're trying to fight the Obama agenda, is the Club for Growth and are their efforts positive in what you're trying to do with this book? And
depends on where they do it. I mean, I think in the case of Utah, we're clearly going to keep the seat. I think that the people of Utah wanted somebody who would fight, and Bennett is a very nice man, but he comes across as a very reasonable guy at a time when people actually want somebody, they want Chris Christie. They want somebody who stands up and says, yeah, let's have it on. I think that the party legitimately is going to go through a fair amount of turmoil, but I think that's fine. I don't see any... there's no reason not to have a very vigorous debate inside the Republican Party about where we're going and what we're doing and how to put it together.
Coming back to Save America for a minute, you talk a lot about God in this book, and you've written about God a lot in the past few years, Rediscovering God in America. You've done documentaries on the same subject. A lot of Republicans are not talking about the secular agenda of President Obama, but you're really out there criticizing the anti-religious bent of the administration and the far left. Why is this important to you to attack the secular part of the Obama agenda when everyone else is focused on
I think that to get America on the right path again, you have 3 very important questions. Who are we? What do you have to do to successfully compete with China and India? And who threatens us, and what do we have to do to be safe? The first one, who are we, I think starts with this core question. I mean, are we in fact a people endowed by their creator? Is the locus of power the individual? Are we sovereign and we loan the government power? Or is the center of power the state? And if you listen to Obama talk, he clearly believes the center of power is the state, and that he gets to decide whether you're earning too much money. He gets to decide whether they should redistribute it. I mean, he represents a politician-centered world which is antithetical to the American experience. And so I think that it's very important to understand why that's true. I also think you're at a stage where, you have the most overt anti-religious bigotry in American history. You have 2 Democratic state legislators in Connecticut introducing a bill that would basically abolish the Catholic Church. You have a Democratic candidate for the Senate in Massachusetts say if you're a Catholic, maybe you shouldn't work in emergency rooms. You have a judge saying that a day of prayer is unconstitutional. You go down this list of things and you think to yourself, I mean, this is so radically different than the historic America before 1963, when the Supreme Court began to aggressively secularize. That I just think we're at a crossroads where you either stand up and say this is fundamentally wrong, and you can't really imagine a successful secular America because it eliminates the core basis of your power, or you say, I'm happy to live in a country in which politicians and government dominates, and in which I have no natural rights, but only those rights granted to me by government. I think those are 2 radically different futures.
How do you explain then all the Christian leaders who backed up Obamacare? I mean, there were a lot of religious leaders who supported that effort.
I don't think being the leader of an organized group necessarily means that you will or won't understand the critique I just outlined. I mean, there are a lot
religious liberty versus right.
Yeah, there are a lot of religious leaders who come out of a basically socialist background. They don't create wealth. They don't create jobs. They in fact redistribute wealth. And so, from their perspective, this is just one more opportunity to redistribute. It's sort of compulsory charity, which is what we used to call taxes.
In the book, you talk a lot about you have a critique of the left, but then you spend the other half of the book offering solutions. If you had if you're talking to a candidate, a Republican candidate in 2010, if they have 2 minutes with a voter on the trail, should they talk about the historic values of the United States, critique the left, or should they talk about solutions? I mean, how are you going to? What's the right strategy to go at the Obama administration?
I think you can say it very quickly. You can say we are faced with a great choice. If you believe bigger government, higher taxes, more lobbyists, more union work rules, more bureaucrats defining your life, and more politicians setting the terms of life works, you ought to be for Obama. If you think that to create jobs we need to go back to encouraging businesses, strengthening the marketplace, lowering taxation, increasing the incentives to work and to create and to invent, you ought to vote for us. They're two fundamentally different futures. You decide which one's going to create jobs and create a better future for you and your children.
Mr. Speaker, just before you came in, I was just reading through your book with Bob chatting about it, and I said something like, what did I say? I said I've been reading books like this for 20 years and nothing ever happens. You know, 20 years ago, federal, state and local government spending was, 32% of gross domestic product, and now it's 44%. Went up all through the last decade, every single year, crept up.
Right. Well,
can we really turn this around?
Sure.
Have we? As my colleague Jane Orblinger says, do the American people still live here anymore?
Sure. I mean, part of the purpose of writing that book is to set the stage for turning it around. I mean, I think if you have a clear enough campaign with a clearly enough defined choice, I think we win it by huge margins. Arthur Brooks will have a new book out in June called The Battle. And Brooks he's the head of the American Enterprise Institute. He's probably the best user of Gallup data in the country. And he concludes that this country is at a minimum 70-30 center-right, which is also what two economists reported in a book written in 2004 called The Right Nation. So start with that, okay? Then you have this anomaly. If that's true, that is, if the problem's not the American people, then the problem is the leadership of the conservative movement and the leadership of the Republican Party. And there you've got to decide whether you're in the business of compromising with the existing order or you're in the business of changing it. And part of the reason that there's this YouTube going around about Chris Christie taking on The Reporter is that actually what people want is a generation of people who are in the business of changing it. And I would argue that books do matter. I think Conscience of a Conservative mattered. I think it changed the entire future of the Republican Party. I think that Losing Ground by Charles Murray mattered. I think it was the most important single book in getting to welfare reform. I think that Winski's How the World Works was extraordinarily important in setting the base for supply-side economics and translating Hayek and the Austrian school into understandable American language. So I think words matter. I also think if you look at a terrific book by Clara Berlinski called There Is No Alternative, Why Margaret Thatcher Still Matters, or Why Margaret Thatcher Matters. It's a brilliant explanation of the scale of the challenge Thatcher faced and how decisively she won that fight. I mean, Thatcher.
Where is Thatcherism now?
Well, Thatcher and Reagan and I all had the same challenge, that we were able to win objective fights in the larger world but not change the culture of our party. And that's an enormous challenge. That's why I founded American Solutions. I think it's a very big challenge.